Greetings, friends! Welcome back to another ghoulish episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we take the movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, here for a brief introduction before today's exceptional episode of the Film Alchemist podcast. Guys, it's official, we're on Patreon. If you want a horror movie every day this month, we've done the work. Now you gots to help us out. Go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. It's the only way to get the movies that are over there on our Patreon, right? We got 2 Patreon exclusives and a feature-length commentary on 13 Ghosts, which was awesome. So guys, just a couple dollars. It does help us out. It's the best way to help the show, man. We appreciate it greatly. You can have your voice heard. It's the best way to make the show what you want, on top of helping us out. So thank you for those of you who already do. Thank you for those of you who are about to as well. The YouTube is Film Alchemist. Go subscribe over there if you want to see these faces. The email, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Another thing, guys, please share all this on your socials, right? Especially for October, the horror movie mega marathon. The more people we get to do this, the more it makes all this work seem like nothing, seem like a small pittance to pay. And also, make sure you leave rating and reviews wherever and everywhere you find the show. That does help us defeat the algorithmic magicians who be trying to steal our shit and mess us up. All right. Guys, I know you're not here for business, especially in October when you hear the business every day. We are joined today by our new friend, DeVaughn Taylor. What a fun and awesome guy. I know he co-hosts a podcast called the Spectre Club. So you can find that in the show details. Make sure you go find DeVaughn and his work online. We got connected with DeVaughn, and we're told this was a guy that we might enjoy having on our October Mega Marathon by our friend Rachel Reeves. She fucking nailed it, man. DeVaughn was awesome. It was such a fun conversation. I felt like I was riding on clouds, as it were, man, just floating through this talk. The movie's very serious and grim at times, right? He chose The Prestige and begins to make the case that this is actually the perfect spooky season movie, right? Not just a tale of magicians, but an excellent kind of gothic revenge tale that is at least horror enough adjacent that you should enjoy it for October. But DeVaughn is just very insightful. I love the way he really gets into these movies, and not even the movies, but he really feels like he sinks into the characters, as you'll hear when we talk. DeVaughn was a wonderful guy. I can't wait to go subscribe to his podcast, The Spectre Club. You guys should go follow him and share all the love with him. We cannot begin to thank DeVaughn enough for how kind he was to make time and join us on this quest into the infinite horror beasts. So, without further ado, The Prestige with our new friend, DeVaughn Taylor. Everybody, welcome to the show, our friend and guest, DeVaughn Taylor. Thank you so much for making the time. Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself to the people and tell them where they can find your stuff on the internet?
Hello. Yes, my name is DeVaughn, and I am a aspiring filmmaker, photographer, and I host a podcast, the Spectre Cinema Club. It's a horror podcast where we dive into the various subgenres and franchises, and kind of similar to what you guys do. We look into that subgenre and be like, okay, like what are the recurring motifs and like things that like make that specific subgenre work. So like that's what we get into. It's hosted by me and my buddy Garrett McDowell.
Nice. Amazing, man. And would you like to share with everyone today the movie you brought? I think probably the most interesting pick we had of the month.
Yeah, so, I pivoted my choice last minute because, there's Starry Eyes. Love that movie, but I've also talked about it ad nauseum. So you can find my thoughts about that at various places. So I want to switch it up and go with a movie that is maybe not horror, but it could be. It kind of is.
Definitely has elements.
At least it's Christopher Nolan's closest thing to a horror movie, and that'd be The Prestige.
Yeah. A fucking wonderful movie, man. So I was messaging with you before we started. I think I saw this once in the theater and just never went back to it for some reason.
Oh, man. I wish I got to see it in theaters.
Yeah, well, that's the benefit of being old. But I was just like, all right, it was fine. Like, magicians, grumpy magicians. Fine, I get it. And I just kind of, I don't know what was going on in my day, but it never really like sat on me. I watched it yesterday. I was like, holy fuck, this is a stunningly amazing movie. Man. And I think a lot of the benefit is once you know the prestige, right? Once you know what's happening, there is so much clever work laid in there, right? As they lay out the three parts of a magic trick, you're like, it's all right there. It's all fucking right there.
Yes. The movie itself is a magic trick. Like, the movie itself, the way it's structured, and like, yeah, it is kind of one of those rare movies that, like, once the reveal, because it's not a twist, but there's a reveal, though, because, like you said, it is all there. They talk about it multiple times throughout the movie, the two reveals of this movie. And, so, like, when you go back to watch it, when you see all those clues, you see... this is, the Nolan brothers working together on the screenplay for this one. And I think it's their most straightforward, like, because, like I said, it is all there. There is a definitive answers to things. And but that's the fun of it is unfurling it. I remember the first time I watched it, it's one of the rare times I watched it and then I immediately watched it again that same night. I like took a break and I was like smoking. I was thinking about it and I go, I need to watch this again. I fucking like went back to back on it. And then I watched it a third time a few days later on an airplane because I was like, what do I want to watch right now? I was like, I'm still thinking about The Prestige. So like, it literally just like, as soon as it entered my brain, I just like couldn't stop thinking about it. It has many things I love. I love magicians. They are kind of inherently spooky when you think about it. They
just
are
total
mysterious.
creeps, man. If we're being honest, like most magicians, it's like you wouldn't invite them over for dinner. Let's be honest.
They're mysterious, they're creepy, and most of them are con artists. They are con artists that at least when they're taking your money, you are still getting something out of it. Yeah. So they're interesting in that way because I love con artists as well. And then as far as like other things that it like really hooks me is I love these complicated rivalries and fatal ambition. Like, how far are you willing to go to like, do the things that you want to do? Like as an artist myself, I very much relate to that as like, how far would I go to get my movie made? Like those ideas are fascinating to me. And the way that, The Prestige does it from the two different viewpoints, very complicated viewpoints. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're both psychopaths. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But
they're kind of old timey The Rock, right? Like that rise and grind time.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll say one of them is more of a bitch than the other one.
Yeah, definitely so.
And but yeah, so I mean, and for everybody, if you guys haven't seen this movie, please go watch it because we got to spoil the fuck out of it. So like, implore people to watch it.
It's kind of a Wizard of Oz thing, right? We have to pull the curtain back to talk about it at all.
Curtain magicians. There we go. There you go. Let's get him rolling.
Soon we'll bring in our attractive assistant. I usually have my killer clown from outer space behind me. That could have been our assistant. But such is life. Yeah, man. So right off the bat, they kind of lay out this thesis of what a magic trick is, right? Mm-hmm. There are three phases to the magic trick: the pledge, the turn, and then the prestige, right? What I love about watching this again, the very first fucking frame of this movie is just a wooded area full of top hats, and things like that always sucker me in. Because you're like, what a wonderful image that makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yes.
Right? And again, they showed you right off the fucking top what they're doing. And so it's Michael Caine kind of running through it. And I thought that was a brilliant way to open the film.
Yeah, it's the coldest of opens. I do love me a good cold open. Right. And the way that, the way that Nolan, obviously, a lot of his movies, they play out in these like, non-linear fashions. And, he is fascinated with time and he's kind of obsessed with it. But this is before he like really starts hitting that obsession. Yeah. This is a movie he's doing in between the Batman movies. Yeah. So he was just kind of like, let me do this weird kind of thing. And so the nonlinear plot line it's here, but it is still pretty straightforward. Like, it's just like they kind of go back and forth with the diaries as like a framing device as well.
Even the journals are a magic trick.
Even the fucking journals, these two pretentious fucks.
It was just the most catty thing. Like, welcome to the end of my journal, you dumb bitch. Like, I got you.
And the most effort to write journal entries in a code that has to be decoded. Fuck off, you two. God damn it.
There is something about just pure, unadulterated, just pettiness that is absolutely enjoyable.
I mean, this is pettiness, like, to the highest degree. I think this is a queer movie, personally. These men, they both have wives that they're in love with, but at the end of the day, they are obsessed with each other and beating, I was about to say beating. They are trying to outwit each other, but at the same time, it's like out of this, jealous, like they want to beat each other. Like they are literally going back and forth trying to copy the same trick because they, like it's not enough just to succeed on their own. They have to do it in this way against him as well.
Yeah,
and so,
I mean, that's kind of the trick, right? Is there can only be one man on the stage taking the bow in the spotlight.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about it in these two. Damn, that's one I didn't think about.
Even if you have to craft, like, I helped make the world's greatest man. Like, Michael Caine seems to just enjoy helping in the process.
Yeah.
These guys are like, it's not enough that we have created a great piece of art to give to someone else. It has to be me at the end. I can't get enough of that, right? These two just... Because there's a segment of the movie where they just go back and forth, taking turns putting on disguises to fuck each other's tricks.
A great montage, great use of
so
a montage.
Wonderful.
Like, and and so it's like at their two journeys. You have Jackman's Angier, and he's the one that that he is obsessed with the reaction, the admiration, and the crowd and the love of it all. Like, and he's known for being the showman of the two. He's not the best magician, but he's the better showman. He has more charisma. And so he does it for, well, he claims the adoration, but really he does it for himself. For the most part. Well, they both do. And then you have Alfred Borden, Bale. And he's that guy that's like, it's all about, for the technique, the mastery of the art. Like, he's that underground rapper that releases a bunch of albums that are like so hard to find because it's all about just, he's doing it for himself as well. Yeah. But the audience, outsmarting the audience, feeds into his ego as well. Well, the two of them, because Borden is a pair of twins, an identity shared by the two of them. I'll refer them as Alfred, which is the more sympathetic one that lives at the end, and then Freddie is the hothead, more competitive one. So it's
that
like
rat bastard just abusing Rebecca Hall and making me depressed.
Oh my God! I mean, poor Rebecca Hall, but like, and they have their own thing between them as well. Because again, Freddie is the more competitive one. Like, he's like, I want to be the best, have the best trick, but I want to beat, Angier. Versus Alfred, he's just like, I just want to have the best trick. Like, that's all Alfred cares about. So out of the three of them, he is the most sympathetic in my eyes, or at least the one that I lean into because I think Freddie is the one that, tied the different knot that killed Sarah. And that's why Alfred is always like, I don't know, because he didn't do it. So it's like,
but also he knew, he just didn't want to admit.
Do you know if Freddie told him or not?
No, I think there's like that twin telepathy where he's like, I fucking know what you did, dude.
Okay, so you think.
Yeah, he's Freddie. He's the one who, as soon as Michael Caine's like, you can't do something, in the back of his head, he has to know, like, Freddie's going to do that shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Freddie's gonna do that shit.
I'm with you there, and so it's like, the triotomy between the three of these guys is just very fascinating. But Angier, man, he is the biggest bitch of all time.
He has that like inherent built-in like rich kid behavior.
Yeah, he's the aristocratic one.
Yeah, I think his journey is really fascinating in the fact that when he loses his wife, right, or something goes bad, he could just fuck off back to his like estate, right, and be Lord Caldwell again. He can just fucking go do whatever. He can just buy the stage up and be like, I'm gonna fucking have this stage and do my magic whenever the fuck I want. I think it's interesting the fact that he remains down in here. It's it's like that I don't want to be known for what my dad did kind of thing, right? I want to stand on my own. So there is something really extra psychotic about his behavior in the movie. Alfred and Freddy being orphans, right? Discast, discarded, not wanted, desperately wanting magic in a world that's been abusive to them and prove that they're better than everyone else. Perfectly easy, logical train to follow. Angier's is so much more clouded and kind of disturbing to me as the movie unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's tough. I mean, because obviously, like unless you have lost your significant other, like nobody knows what type of pain that kind of person is dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean that event, you know, totally warps him. It just changes him, and he from that moment on, you know, he's. Especially since he's never really gonna get a true answer, you know, like that's, you know, the part that drives him mad is, you know, it sends his morals out the window. Like he is willing to, like, I mean, he's wanting to kill Alfred out the gate.
Yeah.
And then it becomes more of, okay, now I'm gonna steal your trick because you're the better magician. I'm gonna do it better and all these things. You know, and then he didn't care about Olivia, and that's why she eventually sided with, you know, Freddy.
Yeah.
Because like she saw like, okay, like you really don't care about anybody anymore. Like you're a monster. And then like, you know, so like, and then he literally stoops to trying to kidnap his daughter. Like, bro, like I understand that like you're sad, but then like, But it's not like Alfred, you know, doesn't lose things as well. He loses his wife. He has half of a life, you know. So it's like, it's not like, you know, Borden doesn't pay for the things that he's done.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like that's, you know, why it's like, okay, like not to say like, hey, you guys are even at some point, but also like, hey, like, you know, at one point, Alfred is just like, I just want to do a trick. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
Let's leave him alone. Like, I'm done with this competitive shit.
Yeah.
But Angier just can't stop, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we can all sympathize with Angier's like, catch this bullet, bitch, and fucking shooting him, right? Like, that's a pretty rational response to you killed my wife with a knot, right?
Yeah.
I follow that. Once you start getting to like, I'm going to fucking bury your assistant alive.
Oh my God,
I'm going to fucking
totally
make your daughter a ward of the state. Like, I'm taking legal steps to execute you and then let you know as you hang in your final moments. And I'm going to raise your daughter. Hopefully well. Who knows? That is so absolutely fucking demented.
He's evil. Like, yeah. All of that is just, he is absolutely a monster.
Yeah.
By the end of this movie. And I love using, you know, the casting of Jackman to do that as well. You know, he is such a likable guy, but like when you see him in like this and Prisoners and you really let Jackman's dark side come out, he's fun. Like I didn't, you know, because Christian Bale is one of my all-time favorite actors.
Yeah.
Like I think he probably is, like, as far as just like, you know, my generation's kind of. And, you know, I remember going into this wondering if Jackman was going to be able to, like, stand toe-to-toe with him, you know? And, I mean, but, man, the performances by both of them are just so phenomenal. And I was, like, you know, very surprised that Jackman was, like, able to, like, really pull through with Bale. Like, their performances are just pitch perfect.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think for a lot of us, right, like, you're the Wolverine guy, and then you saw him in Prisoners, you're like, holy shit, that's, like, taking the step. That movie is such a brutally intense character study, right? And yeah, Jackman really fucking carries this thing. Because I think Bale, so many of us, right, we so accept that the darkness is natural to him. He is kind of the acting Bane, right? Like, I was born in the dark, you accepted it. And you're like, all right, I get it, Christian Bale. This is what you do. Jackman's, though, I think his nice guy platitudes, right, the way he kind of behaves in and out, set such a wonderful palette, right, with then to draw these fucking strokes of madness. It's just, it's so fucking fun to watch, man. I mean, it's
similar to their characters because, like, I mean, even though, because we're used to, you know, like you said, seeing the transformations from Bale, seeing all these things, we're thrown off by one. This is one of the few movies he gets to use his real accent. You know, people always forget that, like, he is, like, that's his accent. And, but the fact that, he still looks and sounds like himself, but then he is doing, like, the tricky performance of, you know, playing these two characters. And, like, the thing I tried doing on this most recent rewatch, and what, like, really just, like, this movie became, like, a top 20 all-timer for me. Like, this had been up there for me, but, like, on this rewatch, so I tried to track, you know, in which scenes Bale was Alfred and which scenes he was Freddy. and like seeing and tracking that and then knowing the implications that those have to the story. And I was just like, these, like, between the way that it's written and presented, but then Bale's performance, the way he does it with just slight little nuances, I'm just like, this is fucking genius level shit right here.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not just that I'm the yelling guy and then I'm the soft-spoken guy, right? It's much, because I was kind of watching that too. The most heartbreaking elements, right? Like probably the scene that most encapsulates this performance to me is when he's in the room screaming at Rebecca Hall, right? His brother pleaded with him like, please God, can you just stop fucking being an asshole?
Yeah.
Please God, let her know that I love her. He couldn't fucking manage it for but a day, right? And so as he's watching or listening to his brother fucking decimate his marriage, torture the woman he loves, we cut to this kind of like library room, and Alfred, dressed as Fallon, walks up and just scoops up the little girl into this like hug of like, God damn, what have I done, right? Because I think his line he used at the end is just such a poetic line, right? We each had half a life and that was enough for us. It wasn't enough for them, right? For their partners. Because they could fucking tell when it switched. And it's, you know, the idea of dating or being married to someone who has those kind of issues, right? And the difficulties and challenges of you don't know who you're waking up with every day. This is kind of a more literal version of that. But man, it really just sat with me today. Because I remembered when I watched it the first time thinking that Christian Bale was just this, oh, he's just like a cock, right? He's just like this mean magician running around fucking shit up. I'm with you. I found him so much more sympathetic on this viewing. Alfred, at least.
Yes, Alfred, for sure. Like,
not that Frederick, yeah.
Yeah, Freddie. And yeah, I do love that, like, again, like, all the things are peppered in throughout the movie. Like, you know, between Sarah being able to tell the difference, Olivia knowing that something is up, you know, and like the fact that Fallon doesn't speak the entire, you know, movie, and it's all Bale's eye performance when he's Fallon, which is crazy. And it's just like, you know, all these things are there. And I've seen, like, you know, critiques of, you know, being like, oh, it's, you know, like, the twist is too outlandish, which I disagree with. But then also I've seen people say that, like, that it's predictable. And it's like, but that's the thing with magic. You go to a magic show, you know it's fake, but you are going and because you want to be fooled. And like that is, and they spell that out in the thesis at the end of the movie. You know, Angier's dying monologue, you know, he very much spells out, like, you know, the way that Nolan feels about film, about making movies, and then the way that they feel about magic. You know, like, you go in and yes, you know, that, like, it you're not trying to fool somebody. It's not like, oh, I'm trying to, you know, stump you and see what you're doing. The real, you know, skill of a movie is, okay, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to show it to you, but can I still, you know, fool you and take you on this ride and on this experience? And that's what the film does. Like, I mean, it's from the very beginning. Cutter is like, it's a double. The only way to do that trick is a double. The only way that Borden is able to do it is a double. I mean, he's, and you know, we're all Angier going like, no, that's too ridiculous. And
it's
like,
too simple. It can't be that easy.
It's too simple, you know? So it's like, I love that, you know, the movie spells it out for you in these monologues, in the presentation, but like, that's not what is, you know, impressive about this movie. What is the way that it's pulled off.
Yeah, a lot of people really cherish kind of chicanery in filmmaking and script writing, right? But then you're like, for a long time in my life, what was the #1 box office movie by like a mile? It was Titanic. And every single person that went to see fucking Titanic knew exactly where that movie was going, right? There's only one point on the horizon for that, and it's right next to that fucking iceberg. But because it was so wonderfully crafted, everyone was just enjoying their ride on the Titanic, right? Knowing what's happening. So I think a lot of the movies that, you know, M. Night Shyamalan used to get dinged for that, right? He can only do twist. And you're like, yeah, he does twist, but his movies are wonderfully crafted.
Exactly. And that's the thing with Nolan, too. People get hung up on, you know, oh, it has to be ambiguous with him because they're like, that's his whole thing. And it's like, but no, like, it's okay for him to be like, no, I'm going to spell it out. Like, this is the opposite of Memento. Like, Memento was like, I'm going to make this as the simplest story as confusing as possible.
Right.
Versus here, he's like, I'm going to take something super complicated, but I'm going to give it to you, like, as straightforward as I can, you know, but I'm going to put the dings and whistles on it because it's a magic trick.
Yeah, and he's even, again, he's kind of tipping his hand, right? Because that's kind of the acknowledgement that every character's talking about is like, you don't really want to look. You want to be fooled. And so even watching it again, I was like, look at how obvious it is that that's Christian Bale, right? When he's Fallon. The first time I watched it, I legitimately did not notice that was Christian Bale. Because I was not looking, right? I was like, what's the fucking trick? When you watch it again, you're like, duh. Like that's
a total
so
fake
fucking
beard.
obvious.
Like that
yeah,
is,
right?
Like the fake facial hair is like
yeah, he's got that cadaver colored cheeks and shit. You're like, all right.
But we look past it though. But we
because you want to just believe it's this great magician. I wanted to believe that Borden is this fucking mastermind who does this amazing transportated man trick. They even fucking tell us when we see the old Asian guy's trick, right? Because I love that sentiment in the movies. He's like, that's the trick, right? Him hobbling out to the carriage. Mm-hmm. And he goes, that is total fucking commitment to the art. A lifelong ruse, right?
Yeah.
Just so you can do that one fucking fishbowl trick. That is what it takes to make something truly great in this world.
And see, and Borden is willing to make that sacrifice himself versus Angier is, no, I'm going to try to cut corners. I'm going to try and spend all my money to get machines made. I'm going to steal your stuff. Even though, yes, he lost his wife, but he himself personally does not sacrifice anything until, I guess the end of the movie where he has to kill himself repeatedly in doing this trick. But again, it's like, you got yourself to that place, you dummy, versus Borden made a conscious decision early on to be like, this is what I'm doing and I gotta fucking stick to it. I gotta fucking and like, so he makes that personal sacrifice himself, but it also does come at the expense of his family, so it is still very selfish on his part as well. That's kind of
the interesting question by the end of the film, right? Is who actually thought their trick was worth it, right? Because Angier is obviously furious his wife got killed, right? I think in the way you see him treat Scarlett Johansson's character, you're like, would that marriage not have soured when he needed to do a better trick? Like, he finds this other lady who loves him, and he's just like, go spy on that guy. Get the fuck out of here. Like, pushes her away just to serve this thing. So you get this sense that Angier always would have been this difficult partner, right? Like, he always would have sacrificed someone near him to do this. By the end, the most near you could possibly be himself. I think by the end, it's funny because Borden, who seems like the guy who's like, I will be that guy, right? I will live this lifelong ruse as twins and whatever. That guy loses both of his lovers, right? His kid gets taken by the state. He loses his own brother. And I wonder if in that last scene, if when he goes in and gets his daughter back from Cutter, if that's a, I'm gonna still stick to the magic. It means a lot to me. He's like, fucking hell, dude. Like, this was not worth it at all.
I think at the very end, he is done. I think the way that they explain it, like when they have that last conversation, it's interesting of, like Borden explains it, and say like, that is true sacrifice. And then Angier tries going, but I sacrifice too. And he and he does his whole explanation to which Borden literally goes, okay. Anyways, no, like you lost everything. You spent all your money. You cut everybody off. You lost your entire humanity. Like he's like, no, like, and because Borden, I think he does say it because when he does say like, we each lived half a life and it was enough for us. So at that moment, pre Sarah dying and his kid being kidnapped, he's like, yeah, like it was worth it to me. I like, this is worth it. But then once his wife dies and then, sees the pain, that is where he is like, okay, yeah, no, like I'm done. Like I can't do this anymore. So I think he does like fully remorse at the end. I think he's out.
I mean, the beauty of that shot, despite its tragedy, right, of her swinging in the shop like that, the birds we saw at the start that would get smashed, right? It's just like this pure distillation of how fucking devastating this battle between them is. And yeah, that's kind of the fun sentiment by the end, right? As we each had half a life and that was enough for us. Well, now you have 100% of a life. You have this wide open life. And is that better or is that this empty, like this fucking whispering chasm, right? Of sadness and misery.
At least he does have his daughter still. So
he still has his daughter.
He does at least have that, and and he's gonna still have the notoriety of his trick. but at the end of the day, like, yeah, like, was it worth all of that? It's a tough, like, it is.
Well, he can't even go back and be himself and start being a magician again because he got hanged. So he's like true. Just out all the way.
So he's just Fallon now.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Nikola Tesla element in this film. I thought that was a really interesting choice to add, right? Because essentially we have this, on a superficial level, right? This is a battle of two magicians kind of one-upping each other, right? This race to the top that's destroying both, right? Kind of like a fucking magical Moby Dick, right? In the middle, when you add Nikola Tesla, I thought that was a really... Because on one point, he brings in this scientific real-world element, right? They call him a wizard, right? He does what magicians only pretend to do. I love that scene, too, when they're, like, in the field of lights. And it's like, imagine a time when just seeing light bulbs was like, holy fuck. You know what I mean? Like, god damn, that guy just made a bird come out of a cage. Look, light, right? In the middle of the night. But Tesla also becomes our engine for... the kind of supernatural ending, right? The science fiction ending of the film. So what did you make of Tesla's inclusion in this story?
I mean, so that is where, aside from, we have elements of revenge in this as well. And I think anytime you have elements of revenge, that automatically kind of starts getting you into the genre territory. But then, so the sci-fi element to it as well is what kind of firmly puts this like in the genre territory for me. And I think this is the one that, divides people. Like, people can get behind the doubles thing and they're like, okay, yeah, like you guys did it. We saw the evidence, like, cool. But then it's like, okay, Tesla making a cloning machine is fascinating. I like that because it mirrors, because they allude to it in the film. It's Tesla and Edison were having their like electric arms race like back in the day. So I like that they include it and have it like paralleling the two of them, and I enjoy it. Like, I mean, I like that the film doesn't try to explain it. Because I think that's what would get this into trouble, is if they included it but then like tried to explain it. And I love that Tesla. He
tried to interstellar it, right? Like put two exact signs on it, and you're like, all right. But no, I like that too. You raise a good point, right? Yeah, the Tesla Edison rivalry, and you see this kind of hollowed out Tesla who's just like, the world won't stand many changes, right? And he talks about how, have you considered the cost, right? Not the financial cost, but how far you're willing to go, right? That he has gone that far, and it's not the life he wishes he would have had in the sense. So he's telling Angier to his face, please fucking God, stop this, for your own sake. And he just fucking refuses, man.
Well, and with the machine as a parallel too, because Cutter has a line, that talks about magicians that, we see, the world behind magicians, all the things that they do, how they make some of these illusions, the contraptions and whatnot. And at one point, Cutter says, we don't do tricks we can't control. So Angier getting this machine and using it is breaking that rule. He's saying because he doesn't, the machine is unpredictable. He doesn't know if it's going to work perfectly. It already doesn't like do what he thought it was going to do, which again, I love that this comes about because Borden tricks him by being like, oh yeah, I got this machine made in here, blah, blah, and like, forces Angier into this. And, but Tesla, spells it out in the way that, how science is fascinating is like, we try to control in science, but at the end of the day, we don't have control. We don't know what's going to happen. So he's an interesting counter to the way that magicians work, that everything is about control and knowing the outcome, because that is their bread and butter, is we do this is what happens, boom, bam, boom, versus now introducing that. So, I mean, Angier, he already loses his credibility for trying to steal a magician's trick. So he's already losing credibility there. As far as like, I mean, I don't know how deep the magician circles run, but like, I'd assume the other magicians are like, man, this motherfucker, like that's like a comedian stealing jokes. But I'm gonna do it better, and so he loses credibility there, and then now he already loses more credibility by breaking, like the principles of magic of like, no, like this is a controlled thing that you do, and now you're bringing this unpredictable science into it. But like, The machine being able to clone somebody is just, it's wild, and we don't explore it at all.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. Like, I like it.
I like it too, man, because the only real exploration we get, right, is the first time he uses it, another version of him pops up.
He talks too.
The first moment that they both lays eyes on each other, right, they both are like, I got to get that fucking gun and shoot the other one. And I was like, that's such a really interesting way to kind of expose who Angier is at his core, right? Anyone will be fucking disposable. At the end, when he's sitting amongst the, aquariums of the dead, right, the versions of himself, you're like, that's visually really fucking cool, man. But once you make the choice once, I don't think the 98th is harder than that first choice, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
his kind of crocodile
says,
tears, like, it doesn't take nothing to steal a man's trick. It takes everything. And I was like,
exactly.
Come on, motherfucker.
Exactly. Yeah, you do it the one time, like you are broken after that point. Like you have killed yourself and officially, and you're broken by that point. So yeah, it doesn't matter after that. Like you don't know the courage it took to get in there every night, and it's like, no, you have no courage, you have no spine, you're a nothing. Like I love even the way that like his final, the transporter man is like presented, and he just like walks around closing his eyes and just like standing and like saying vague things when remember his performance used to be full of life and energy and like and you were into it, but then is tricked by the end. He's just so pompous and just so like it does not matter anymore, like it because he could have the success, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna have the success and I still want to fuck you over as hard as I can. And like he's a petty motherfucker.
And it's also because essentially the guy we see at the end must be the 100th copy, right? It's kind of like a body snatchers thing. They look like you, but they don't have the scars and the lived skin, right? Because whoever stands in the machine falls fucking under and gets a death by water.
Which also, why? Like, goddamn.
Why do that, right? Why not just have an army of Angiers, like Multiplicity Michael Keaton, right? Just, you know what I mean?
And when you think about it too, like, also comparing them, like, their actions throughout, like, again, like, Angier does the most horrendous things. Again, I love that Borden, while Angier's dying, literally just says, like lists out all the things he done. He's just like, dude, you've done, like, some horrible shit. We both have, but, like, you really did some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And, when you go back and you like think of like that montage, like aside from breaking Angier's leg, all of Borden's things to fuck with him were literally like fucking with him. It was like, oh, I'm gonna hijack your show and show you up, like, which he deserved. And then like, oh, here, I'm going to give you my fake notebook and send you on this goose chase and like, because you're a dummy. So it's like really all the things that he's doing, he's trolling Angier.
Yeah.
Versus Angier is like, no, I want to ruin your life. And like, and is so malicious about it.
Yeah. Theirs is a craftsman rivalry, right? Like, I will out magic you, and Angier's like, I will fucking shoot you. I will maim you, and I will kidnap your children. Yeah, I will
hire actors. I will do this. Like, totally forgot about his double attempt, with that whole thing. But then again, Borden just, is smart and manipulates and, does that rather than, like, again, he's not having to fucking come after him and try to just permanently maim him.
Yeah, I do wonder if in the end, if Angier got a satisfactory amount of kind of karmic punishment, right? There was a small bit of me that wanted him to just be like, you have to fucking live with this, always knowing that you were second best, right? Because I'm imagining the moment that Angier does the first Tesla machine transported man. He knows for a fact that Borden beat him. This is an absolute concession that he'll never be able to do a better trick than him. Mm-hmm. And so essentially he's just running Tesla's fucking trick, right? Another man that he's just fucking, riding the coattails of.
Exactly. So, from the thing that he wanted, I think until, Borden like told him the secret, I think he is like satisfied to a degree. And I think, I think that's us as an audience. Like, yes, we would rather him live and have to live with that. But again, that's where Borden has completed his arc, because he does not care anymore about being the best, who's second best. Like, or else he would have, let him live and like done something else. But then he now is just as low. It's like, this is him finally being like, no, I am the bigger man, and I'm gonna, just end it. It's done.
Yeah.
And that's
essentially the battle's over, right? It will go down in the minds of people for however long magicianship lives in the memory, right? That Angier so defeated Borden that he killed him, right? So the fight's already won. So that's another little intimate detail I like about the end, is both of these guys are fucking dead. They're literally battling beyond the grave, right? To still fucking have at each other. It's just so fucking awesome.
I know. I mean, the amount of again, I'm a sucker for con men, so like the amount of disguises in this movie is fantastic.
They're just sharing a little vanity and doing each other's thing.
Yeah, again, like the trading of the notebooks, and like that's I mean, Angier is a psychopathic level of pettiness. But I still think that Borden takes the top of pettiness for the fake diary move. What would you say that is the most petty move out of everything? With
a cipher, so it's kind of, I mean, there's a funny pettiness to it. Like, it's the most childish maneuver, and it took hours of work. So it is ludicrous, right? I do think it's Angier's is a little more maliciously petty, right? But that fucking journal thing, and then the fact that he got Angier to then also have to write a fucking fake journal after he assigned his ass homework. It's just fucking great, man. It's just so silly.
And I love that, got to shout out, I think Scarlett Johansson is very underrated in this. And Rebecca Hall, they are both giving like fantastic performances too. And I mean, it sucks that, that of course, like the people that suffer the most in this are the women. And, also part of the time, but also it just like, but the way that they shine through with like their performances past that, and they are still written with like agency, especially Olivia, a little bit more so than Sarah, because, Olivia is like kind of is the wild card of the whole situation, because, they can't really account for her actions and feelings, that whenever she, Angier thinks he has the leg up by sending her, but then, he doesn't account for her falling in love with Freddie and then, switching sides. So it's like, she has a lot of layers of dynamics to her as well. We don't get a backstory from her at all. Like, she literally just like kind of comes out of nowhere and like shakes up this whole situation. Yeah. She's very fun in that.
Yeah, well, she's kind of an expert level hustler, just like they are, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I might be the only pretty assistant, but I also know that I'm in the battle too, and she's very good at knowing when to get hers, right? Yeah. Like when Freddie comes in, he's like, leave your wife and kid at home, right? When you're with me, you're with me. I was like, damn, that is cold.
She
does.
Not
horrible, because it's not her fault that he's a fucking cheater, right?
Nope.
But she's also like, don't bring that weak shit over here to me, right? When you're here, do your shit. And so,
she has some boss. She makes some boss moves. Like, like you said, like she knows that she is a part of this and is gonna be used. So at least she's like, well, if I'm gonna be used, then I'm gonna have a say in how. Yeah. And I'm gonna dictate this, in my own way as well.
Yeah, because they say the best distraction is a pretty assistant. She uses herself as her own pretty assistant, right? And I thought that was I'm gonna take ownership of this thing you fucking saddled around me. I thought she was great, man, because to be honest, I kind of forgot she was even in the movie, right? And so that's why I love this thing when you go back and rewatch a movie and it just reopens in a way that's so much more than it was before. Her and Rebecca Hall is great.
And they were all in such different times of their career, because this is 2006. So think of it in that time, and like where each of these actors like were in their respective careers, makes going back and watching it like, oh shit, like whoa. And then, same with Rebecca Hall. Like, I really didn't know who Rebecca Hall was until like a few years ago when she started popping up in a lot of horror stuff. And then that's whenever I kind of she became on my radar. So it's like, oh, like she's been around doing this, like that like that scene. Like, I mean, she is so heartbreaking. Like,
it's fucking
in her monologue. It's Oh,
I want her so bad to just do something like an Adam Sandler movie. Like, that poor fucking woman, the fucking psychic toll her career. But I just saw Resurrection. And I saw the, fucking hell, dude. She is devastating. Like, you're just like,
she just has a lot of those. Like, she is just, like, I mean, the Night House. I mean, she is just
Jesus
always
Christ,
just
yeah,
like,
the Night House.
Just
Christine,
getting tortured.
Right? You're like, God
Christine.
damn, help, please get this late. Yeah, like, even Nicole Kidman did a Sandler movie, right? She's like, you know what? Like, I've had enough. I need a break. Right? I want to go to a beach somewhere and fucking tell jokes.
Right.
Like,
she deserves it. She truly does deserve it.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, she is, because Nicole Kidman's like my all-time favorite actress, but Rebecca Hall is like climbing my rankings, right? But I was just like, yeah, the work she puts in to like take this suffering into her. And it's so fun, like you said, to go back to 2006 and like she already had the home run swing, right? Her crumbling in that marriage is devastating.
I mean, she truly is the emotional anchor of this movie, you know, because, I mean, she's the one, you know, where we see any ounce of humanity shown by, like, you know, by her primarily, but, like, also, like, you know, she's the one thing that, like, I think if she wasn't around, then, like, then Borden would have become, you know, like Angier. And I think he would have.
It would have been double Freddy's, right?
Exactly. It would have been. And, you know, and we don't really get much of Angier's wife at the beginning. So it's like, you know, even though, of course, we're still going to be sympathetic to him, we're just not as anchored to Angier. But, like, the way that Rebecca Hall just, like, takes, like, she, like, because the movie itself, like, everybody's kind of cold and calculated in the way that they interact with each other, and she even says that at one point, and she's the only one that, like, you know, really, you know, emotionally reacts to things like a human being would. Like, even Olivia is, you know, cold and callous in her own way, and then I guess Cutter, he eventually does have his point, because he's pretty cold until he reaches that point where he's like, okay, like, I literally cannot do this anymore. You know?
Well, there's this thing where you feel like Cutter hates Borden as much as Angier.
He does.
And at the end,
his
he's
attitude,
just like,
yeah,
he's like, I understand what he did, but he made a mistake in a show, right? And he's like, you fucking committed murder and stole a child. Like, this is beyond. We're not in this fucking magical arms race now. Like, so watching Cutter break at the end and then steward the daughter until Borden comes back and they just give a knowing nod to each other, right? I thought that was just a lovely way for this to wrap up, right? Because the line Cutter has that I love is at the end, he's like, that's the trick. There is no trick, right? And he's like, I'm coming to Caldwell to be like, please, God, destroy this machine.
Mm-hmm.
And when he sees him, it's just like on his face, like his whole world crumbling.
Oh yeah, when he's like, I've been an accessory, like I mean, he's been an accessory the whole time, because that's what his the engineer or engineer, they say it in a funky way, but it's like,
yeah,
basically engineer, basically the engineer, and you know, and he is like, you know, like he's that knowing, willing participant, and yeah, he doesn't like Borden because he's like, no, I'm more about the show, like, and obviously he designs the way that tricks work, so he's like, no, it's not about, like, you know, all this, it's about how can we make it effective, but then also show it as a show, like, you know, he's the best of both worlds between, like, their ideals as a magician. Like, he's like, yes, I understand the trick itself is important, but it's not the most important thing. You got to have the show and all the, you know, the principles behind it. But yeah, he's a little bit more smug towards Borden pretty much all the time, just because Borden is, you know, because Borden thinks he's smarter than Cutter, you know.
Borden's a prickly soul for sure.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt about it. Well, maybe, I mean, Freddie or Alfred, right? Whichever. But I think the sentiment that kind of really sealed the whole movie for me at the end of this viewing was when he first unveils the Tesla trick, right? And the agent's kind of there. He's like, I've seen the fucking, you know, whatever. He didn't even come back, right? That sentiment at the start, it's not enough to make something disappear. You have to bring it back, right? And when Angier walks in behind him, he goes, you'll have to excuse me. It's been a long time since I've seen any real magic, right? And the weight of that on his mind. And then he goes, you have to dress this up, give them a reason to doubt it. Right? And I think that sentiment is so beautiful of this movie. Right? This whole thing, you know, we know that they're fucking conning us and we want to what if something was actually real that they did? And I think at the end, Cutter is looking at, oh my God, we weren't doing a stage show. This is real destructive magic. And I think it's just too much for his mind to handle, man. This old guy on his way out is like, is this what the future of magic is going to look like?
Yeah, I was literally, that's what I was about to say. I was like, he's like a sports old head that's like, oh my God, magic's not going to be the same
these
anymore.
3-point shots, yeah.
now that you brought science into this, you fuckers. He's over it for sure in a way. And salty Michael Caine is always my favorite Michael Caine.
Yeah.
And we definitely get some saltiness in here. You know, this is one of his better late career performances for sure. And yeah, I love it all. I really do.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to spill out? What about this movie just when you're sitting there on a day, right? And you're like, I want to watch a movie. What keeps you coming back to The Prestige?
I mean, you know, one, to say like why this would fit in October, like it's very gothic Victorian era for sure. Like, I mean, it's a very cold looking movie. It's very eerie. I mean, and just also like the like this is evil on display, like for real, and evil on display by humans, you know, which it makes it even worse, you know. So like, you know, so but aside from that though, like this is just one of those movies. Like again, like. You know, this is a movie that like I aspire, like I want to make a movie like this to where it's like I can like where I can make this like kind of contained puzzle box, but also like the magic trick is it's like I want to show you, present what I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna, you know, do all the things and like, you know, so like this is like comparable to like when you're like watch Parasite and you just see all the little pieces that connect together and you're just like, man, like this is a film. Like this is why storytelling is made into a visual medium, you know, like this is based off of a book and I'm sure the book is fine. I'm not a reader, but it's like, but this is like the magic of movies, being able to take this story and then like present it in this way. I mean, and all the things that he's juggling and pulls off in this, you know, narratively, theme wise, but then also on a filmmaking level as well. Like, I mean, it hits all the boxes and like, but just like being able to watch it like I'm like playing a game with myself, you know, like, okay, let me see, like I said, like catch it, who is it, Freddy or Alfred, you know, like or you know, like getting the timelines, you know, fit together and everything, and still trying to figure out like who tied the knot, did they tie the knot, like what is the true, like, you know, so it's like there's just even though again, like you go into, and even because I remember going into it and I knew about the clone part, like before I watched it for the first time, I was like, okay, apparently there's some clones in this or something. I was like, all right. So again, thinking of like that bigger reveal, I wasn't thinking at all about with the stuff with Borden. So like I remember, even though I knew the one twist, and then once I got that one, I was just like, oh my fucking gosh, like so I love this from just appreciating it as from a filmmaking standpoint of just like, this is like how you like put movies together, you know, and it's just fun. Like, you know, we got some dark comedy in there, you know. This is a 2-hour, 10-minute movie. Pacing is perfect. It breezes by, and it has all the things. The one knock on it is the song that plays during the credits.
What the fuck was that credit? Okay, I'm so glad you said that, because I was like, what the fuck just happened? It was like the band that won the contest at School of Rock, like, got to deal with Christopher Nolan. It's like, what the fuck is this? Okay.
I was so confused because, like, this is a movie that, like, when I'm watching it by myself and, like, a good, like, scene of dialogue hits or, like, a good thing is revealed, I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, yeah, God, this movie rules. So, I mean, I was hyped by the end of this movie. Yeah. And then that end credit song, I go, what? It was like a record scratch. Yeah. At the end.
It feels like he's like, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, so
dude, I think what you said is really beautiful, because I do think this is a great spooky season movie, right? This is, again, it's a gothic tale of revenge and ambition, right? It's classic Edgar Allan Poe. And by the end of the film, every frame of this movie is just filled with ghost by the end of this movie, right? Not figuratively, but they're there, man. And what I like, I think this is Christopher Nolan's most human movie, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes.
One of my knocks about him is I feel like a lot of times, like, here's this big technical thing. That's great. But for me, I need one of those, like my filmmaking thing, right? I remember being in the theater and I went to see Brigsby Bear. And I'm like, what the fuck is this, like, bear movie? Okay, I'll go. And at one point, I almost left the theater to just cry. Because I was just like, I'm so happy that this movie exists. And it so made me want to make my version of that movie, right? Like, tell that tale. And when you're lucky enough to have that in your life, I mean, it's the thing that keeps you getting out of bed every day, right? Is when you find a movie like that that can sustain you. So I think that's a beautiful sentiment, man. I absolutely understand that.
It's like, I mean, it's literally like The Magicians. Like, it's chasing that ultimate trick, you know? Like I just aspire to be like, oh my God, I just want to be able to capture that and make that moment, you know, and like makes my feel something by something I created, you know, like, but I'm like, but man, what am I willing to do? Like, no, I'm not going to cut my fingers off. I'm not going to blackmail and break people's legs. But,
maybe
a
finger, right? Maybe
a
one.
Finger. I got
one
two
finger,
I got 2 pinkies to spare.
I'm not giving up my kids or anything like that, but no, I mean, that's the thing for all of us that write or try to do podcasts or all this shit. I think it's so relatable. So I think sometimes you see a movie like this on this scale and you're like, how the fuck could I ever make something that good and that grandiose, right? Like, it's hard to even fathom being in charge of something that big. Exactly. But when you watch these guys just doing these petty ruses, you're like, that I fucking relate to. That I sink my teeth into 100%.
And again, I think this was a movie that, like, this is Nolan's love letter to filmmaking. Like, this is him. He was taking a break from doing these giant Batman movies.
These giant studio things, whatever.
Exactly. And I think he, like, maybe he needed a reminder of, like, why he does this, you know, of, like, what am I chasing? Like, what am I trying to accomplish with filmmaking? So it's like, I feel like this is a very personal film from him. In a way. Like, I feel like this is the only movie that makes me somewhat have an idea of how his mind works. Because, like you said, his other movies, the people kind of feel like AI a little bit. They kind of feel like robots, you know?
They're a little prop-ish, right?
Yes, they are.
They're there to take us to the next amazing set piece more than us to, like, really sing. I mean, he has his moments, right?
Yeah. So this was in his
it's more
spot.
of a tech. It's fucking great, man. And I think the real thing I will take away from this viewing, I think one of the most stunning achievements of the film is that once you see the magic trick, they tell you beat by beat, the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. It almost is better the next time you watch it, right?
I think so.
And for a movie that, you know, it doesn't rely on the twist or the reveals, right? They are just the perfect, you know, condiment on top of this lovely meal. Exactly. And I think that's the thing. The fact that once you know, like, you knew going in and it didn't fucking degrade the movie for you, I think is incredible.
Exactly. Like, that is, like, the true test of a movie with, like, a twist or a reveal is, like, is it still going to be rewatchable later? How does it change the context in which you're going to watch it later? And it changes it into 2 different movies, like, really. And that's what makes it so rewatchable, and you're able to, like, keep coming back to it, you know?
Yeah. It's a wonderful movie, man. It was a great pick. Thank you so much for joining us, man. This was fucking wonderful talk. Would you like to tell everyone one more time where they can find your stuff online?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Again, like, this movie I love it. I even when I searched how much I've tweeted about this, I was like kind of shocked. I was like, oh shit. I was like, I do talk about this movie.
I'm really into the prestige.
Yeah, and so it was great getting to really nerd out about it. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at _daddydisco. Again, I direct some music videos. I do, like, some little shorts type stuff, photography, like, you know, some random stuff. And on Twitter, I'm just always talking about movies. But you can listen to me talk about movies on my horror podcast, the Spectre Cinema Club, hosted by me and my buddy Garrett McDowell. We just hit 100 episodes, so that was pretty tight. Very excited for that. Thank you.
Hell yeah, man. Congrats.
So we are wrapping up the Reanimator franchise, and we're going to be closing out the year with cannibal movies and Disney Channel original horrors.
Original cannibal movies.
That is
Venn diagram.
That's exactly our range and why we did them back to back. We're like, let's go as depraved as possible, and then
it's a small sliver of the Venn diagram, but it's fucking there.
See, all the subgenres, they're all connected. How? Listen to the podcast. We do new episodes every Tuesday on all the platforms, on Instagram and Twitter at Spectre Cinema.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll share this in the show notes too. You definitely have a fan in me, man. I will say it now. You have open invitation to come back whenever you want for any movie. Thank you so much for your time.
Hell yeah, man. I'll have you in the club as soon as possible. Bud.
Done deal, man. All right, guys. Once again, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Because it's October, we'll see you tomorrow with another wonderful horror movie podcast. Bye!
Abracadabra.
Oh, what a great line.